Welcome to zebracode.io. We are Lesson 5 Homework Solutions, and we're going to be reviewing Homework Problem 5, and it's using a while loop, write a program called factorial.py that prompts the user to enter a positive number between 1 and 100. A factorial is, and it's basically when you take a number like n factorial, it's n times n minus 1 times n minus 2 all the way down till we get to 1. And the program calculates and prints the factorial of the number entered. So instead of using a while loop, however, we're going to use a for loop just to deviate from the homework slightly and encourage you to get more practice. So we're opening up idle, IDLE, and you can open that up in your, that's part of the download when you start, or when you download Python, and we're going to create a new program called factorial.py. In this case, I've already created it with no code in it, and I have a comment that says factorial for a for loop, and our factorial using a for loop. And as before, we're going to set up two screens side by side. One, we're going to have our idle, which is our editor, when we're working at our PC, and then later on we'll be using the command prompt. So first thing, let's create a variable. I'm going to call it x. X is assigned the value of input, in parentheses, enter a number between 1 and 100. So this will get the input from the user. It will come in, it will be stored in the variable called x, but x will be a string because of the input command, and I convert it to an integer by saying x is assigned the value of integer, in parentheses, x. Now for I in range 0, I'm going to go from 0, and I can go all the way up to, remember, I want to include the number n, or whatever I'm getting, so I'm going to add x plus 1. Now, if you ever have any confusion, the hardest part when working with loops is looking at the beginning point and the endpoint, so you can write your program, experiment, see if make sure it's doing what you expect it to do. Now, in addition, I need a variable, and I'm going to call it fact. That's going to represent the factorial, and I'm going to assign it initially to 1, because if I assign it to 0, any number times 0 is always 0, and that's not going to work. So now I have, within my loop, I'm going to say fact is assigned the value of fact times I. So this is going to iterate however many times. It can be as low as 1, or it can be all the way up to 100, and it's going to recalculate factor each time. And then after I exit the loop, I'm going to print out the statement, the factorial of, and I'm going to put in, I'm going to concatenate that with the string value of x, that's the number they entered, and I'm going to concatenate that with is, and I'm going to concatenate that with the variable or the calculation I've just calculated in the variable fact, and I'm going to convert that to a string. So I'm going to print that all out. Notice I have different strings here, and I basically am concatenating them all together. So that's one thing we can do, is we can concatenate many strings together. So now to execute the code, I open my command prompt, and I'm here within Homework Lessons 5, and I can do a dir, and I can see that I do have lots of code here, but I'm going to focus on factorial.py. So I can do Python factorial.py, and this is going to execute that code, and it says enter a number between 1 and 100. So let's always start small. I can enter 5, and it gives me the factorial of 5 is 0. Now something is definitely wrong here, so we can always go back to our code and look and think, what could be wrong here? How would I get 0? And we can see that I'm starting with range 0 to x plus 1, and I really should start that at 1, because once I have a 0, I'm going to get 0. Its factorial is always going to be 0, and I multiply any number, it doesn't matter how many times, it's always going to be 0. So by simply changing that to a 1, I can run that code again. Now let's enter a simple number like 4, and I get 24. Well, what's 4 times 3 times 2? Yeah, that's 24 times 1. Of course, it's 24, so that makes sense. Let's try something a little bit bigger. Let's try, no, let's not quite. Oh, well, let's go all the way to 100, and we get this huge number here. We can see that the factorial of 100, it grows very, very quickly. Let's choose something like factorial of 20, and we still get a very large number. And that's something we're able to, the computer is, just super fast at doing these calculations, and something that would take us a very long time to calculate 100 factorial can be done rather quickly with a computer. So we've looked at iteration in chapter 5 or lesson 5, and we've solved a homework problem dealing factorials. Look at the other homework problems, and definitely practice both with while loops and for loops. Thank you. This is zebracode.io.